What were your initial impressions when you came to TCC? At the time, 68, 69, college started in September 65. Uh, I've seen the statistics of our demographics at that time. Probably not that many African American students in 68, 69 when you were here.
Right.
What were your initial thoughts and when you were here, and what were your impressions?
Well, you're right. TCC was 4 years old, I think, when I started here, and very few African Americans or other students of color. But keep in mind that I was 30 years old, had a good job, still wanted the education. I had a full life. I didn't come here just to be a student, if you will. And so my impression was probably more riveted on the education piece and et cetera. But what I found is there was people here who were very supportive in nurturing, and of course I needed all of that. They helped me immensely to try and map out a pathway forward for me. But then most of the other people, and maybe it's because of the newness of the campus, was really pretty much indifferent to the plight and interests of African American students. And so, and then of course during that period of time, campuses across the country, black student groups, black student unions, or whatever the name might be, was growing all over the place as we tried to have these public institutions to live up to their missions of inclusiveness and all of those kind of things, but we were feeling excluded and not very welcoming. And so that gave rise to the black student movement across the country, and the same happened with TCC. And so because of that situation, we formed we named it the OB Society. We didn't want to just be thought of as a black student union. And OB in Swahili, the meaning was soul. And so we formed a group because we wanted the better recognition to be able to use some of the student services money that was available for various activities for clubs and organizations on campus, and of course, there might have been 2 or 3 black teachers and Asian American staff was very, very low. So we wanted that, and of course there was no representation of people of color on the board. That was almost unheard of.
So when you first came here, were there some of the people that you remember as role models that were early faculty or counselors or whatever?
Yes, there were 2 people that I hope I'm not overstating it, I really think saved, if they didn't save my life, they saved me from bodily harm, and that was Bill Muse and Joe Kosai. Never met them before, but they were wonderful. They gave us great advice. They encouraged us. They supported us, and so it was
Joe
wonderful.
What was Joe's position at the time? Was he in charge of student services?
I think he was.
And then Bill was faculty, right?
He was faculty in biology.
Right.
I think it was.
He taught biology.
Yeah. But it was not so much their role definition, their activities and their job definition. Right. It was the relationship part of it, because I never took a course from Muse or had any other connections, but they were there for us because connection of what we were trying to deal with. And unbeknownst to me, of course, it's an obvious deal that they had gone through their trials and tribulations as well. And so the connection was there, and they were just very supportive. And I said that the bodily harm kind of notion was, we had an incident here on the campus. There was a big boulder in the middle of campus, and
Still here.
oh, is it? Okay. It became the symbol of us trying to get established here at Tacoma Community College, and the resistance we were receiving from the other students to what we were doing. And so we had painted the rock black to symbolize we're here to stay and solid and all that kind of stuff. And then overnight, a couple of times when we come back to campus, it had been painted white. And so we had this thing going on. And so I was at a meeting at the Urban League downtown and received a call, myself and about 4 other students, because we were meeting with people from the community to see how they could be supportive of what was going on. And so they called and said, you need to get back out at campus. The white students were painting the rock there in midday. And so we raced back out here and to the rock location. And it just seemed like every student on this campus was there. And we came up from the 12th Street side. There's about 5 of us. And I just happened to have my umbrella with me. It was a rainy day. And we stood between this big block of students and the rock. And security was there and all that kind of stuff. And Tacoma Police plainclothes was all over the place. And they then challenged us to charge the students who were standing there, and because of the boulder and the building that was close by, we were trapped. We were trapped, and the security stepped out of the way. And it was COSI and Bill Muse who stood between us and those students. I remember I had my umbrella. My defense was going to be trying to jab people with the umbrella because we were trapped. Our backs were against this building, and so if they would have been able to get to us, I don't know what would have happened to us. But they prevented that, and it was. They also told us at that moment that the President Ford had agreed to meet with the OB Society representatives to discuss with him the demands that we had given to them, and they had not acknowledged that, no contact with us whatsoever. But
So at that time, you'd already given them the list of the
Yes.
11 demands.
Yes, yes.
The challenge that is a pretty good resource for that, and talk about all of those.
Right.
The student paper.
Right.
Did you feel like they were fairly accurate about what they were reporting, what's going on with what you were doing?
The challenge? Of course, people that's in that business, they have to have a little Hollywood in them. They have to kind of jazz it up, but pretty much it was. But if you look at some of the writings, Fred Lowe was a minister of information for the OB Society and was a great writer. He had some great articles in there as well. But for the most part, my recollection is that it was reasonably well reported.
So were you president at the time when this incident happened? Of the society?
Yes, I was the original president, and because no one else would do it primarily, it was it wasn't something that I ran for. It was the last one standing, and it wasn't something I wanted to do because I didn't have time. You know, when I finished class here, I was racing to work and all those kind of things. And so it wasn't a natural fit for me because I didn't spend a lot of time on campus and doing just the student kind of things. I had a life outside of, full life outside of that, and I have a lot of time. But I decided to do it because no one else would do it.
And you felt strongly about the situation and what needed to be done.
Oh yeah, I felt very strongly about that. There's no question about that. But it's just trying to fit in, you know, the time and all the other things that was going on, and it wasn't a lot of support for what we were talking about. So we had to hustle for everything that we were doing.
So, would you be able to estimate how many African American students we had at the time at TCC?
No, I would just be guessing, but it was very, very small.
And how many people did you have involved in the OB Society, do you know?
Not really, probably no more than 15 to 17. It was a small group because some of the students who were here, African Americans, didn't want anything to do with the Black Student Union. And one example of that, we tried to get, I think they had 2 or 3 black basketball players, and they were starters. I mean, the team was built around them. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't get the school to allow black women to be cheerleaders. And so one of our strategies we thought was if we could get the basketball players to say that they wouldn't play unless African American women would be able to be a part of the cheerleaders. And we even told them, just fake it. You don't have to. Let's be able to tell them that that's what would happen, because we know that they wanted you to play basketball, so that might help us to get inroad, and they wouldn't do it. And so there were more students on campus than we had really involved in the OB Society. That was a very small number of people who was really involved.